Someone stole $25,000 from me. It ended up costing him $500,000. Welcome back to Reddit Chronicles. If you're new here, consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. And if you liked the video, do kindly give it a thumbs up to help me out. Let's get started. I posted this on r/ProRevenge and was told it belongs here. A preamble. I was married to a very OCD and pragmatic man. For example, for him, a big romantic gesture had been to leave me alone for 24 hours at the hospital right after I had our son, so he could go pay bills and mow the lawn. 20 years later, I do understand he really did express his love this way, but that's another story. I was in dire need of physical contacts because he'd never touched me unless he wanted very bland sex, and also never ever kissed me. The story is not about him, it's only a preamble. So, I divorced him, not just for what's above, mind you. I felt alone and unloved in this relationship. I just wrote about it to explain the state of mind I was in when I met this other person that we'll call PS. PS was the total opposite. He was very in tune with his emotions. He was very, very intense. This will be important later. He really expressed love like I thought I needed. On our first date, the waitress asked how long we'd been together since he was so into me and touching me. He made me feel amazing. He had a huge house and a rather flashy lifestyle, so I assumed he was really well off. He told me he owned a car wash and a phone marketing company. Fast forward a bit, at this point, we had been dating for about a year, and he had just asked me and my son to move in with him. I wasn't 100% sure, but he prepared the room for my son nonetheless. As I started spending more and more time in his house, still keeping mine, I also started to see strange behavior. He'd be up all night, but sleep all day. I also overheard a few phone calls where he was telling people they owed money and needed to pay, but the conversations didn't fit with a car wash or a phone marketing business. At some point, he told me he was having money problems. He said huge clients were late in paying, and that was jeopardizing his house payments. So, I, stupid me, offered to help. I'm missing a part of this story because it started as me offering help with the house, since we were there a lot. Still had my house though, but it ended up with me lending him $25K. I cannot for the life of me remember that progression. The loan was supposed to be for 3 weeks, he said. I'd have it all back in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That $25K came from my retirement savings / son's college money, so I had to pay a fine to access it. It's also money that took me 10 years to put aside. That money was very important to me. During those 3 weeks, I went out to have drinks with my friends and find him on a date with another woman. I saw him French kissing another woman. I said nothing, went to his house, packed my and left. So anyway, I thought he'd be an adult and would reimburse the $25K at the end of this 3 weeks. Big mistake. Someone I knew told me he was glad I left and proceeded to tell me all about him. He said PS was junkie, hooked on GHB, hence why he was so intense and so into his emotions. That also explained the erratic sleep/night patterns, but the final blow was when he told me PS was also a con man, a specialist in defrauding older people by phone, his so-called phone marketing company. In the beginning, I wasn't sure I believed it, but then bits of what I had overheard in the last year started to make sense, and I realized it was all true. Back to this later. I tried having my money back many different ways. None worked. I was at the end of my rope, and since it was my year post-divorce, and right after the 2008-2009 economic crash as well, I was poor as hell. So this is what I did. First, he had given me access to pay bills online, not his bank accounts, but to his emails, so I was able to investigate all his accounts with the same password. I printed/screenshotted every little bit of information relating to money. I also found proof that he was indeed scamming people, and found the people he worked with, even the name of the person at the Western Union who facilitated the money transfer. I found out he was an organized criminal. I also found out he did this between US and Canada. I started preparing strike one. So, for strike one, I printed his face and the face of everyone working for/with him in defrauding people and left hundreds of flyers in his neighborhood. I also called the hotline for financial crime prevention in both Canada and the US and gave very specific details and names. Know that even if he had given me the money, this goes against my core values and I would have done the same thing either way. At this point, I was preparing strike two. I was dumb in lending him money, but at least I did it the right way. I wrote a check. I didn't do cash. I wanted proof, just in case. It would turn out to be a great idea. On the check, I had written that it was a loan. Thank you, Judge Judy, for this tip. Since he didn't pay me back, I prepared an invoice and sent it to myself from his hacked email. When the time came to do my taxes, I filed the $25K as an expense using this invoice. I have many freelancers, I slid him as one of them, and it passed. Don't ask me how I got his social security number. I can't remember, but I ended up having access to it, so ratted him out to the IRS for hiding income. I found out later through his friends that the IRS started investigating him for unpaid taxes. I heard he had to pay 38% taxes on that $25K, plus pay a 20% fine for not declaring income. At this point, I was satisfied. I figured $9,500 in taxes, plus $5K in fines, was 50% of what he owed me. At least he didn't get away with it all. But remember I told you on the check, I had written that it was a loan. So I took him to court and won. He didn't even show up. So he has to reimburse the full $25K, plus court fees, plus what he owes to the IRS. So it's $39,500 that he was to pay for not reimbursing $25K. To this day, I still haven't seen a cent, but the rest of the story makes it worthwhile. At first, I thought the financial crime call I made had no effect. Well, it's now the cherry on top. What I didn't know at the time is that the IRS would team up with Wire Fraud Division and look at everything he did. They were not able to catch him on the wire fraud, but since the house he had did not fit with the money he was declaring, they got him on tax evasion and gave him a certain delay to pay back taxes. I heard it was 3 months, but I don't know if it's accurate. They got him so good. They ended up freezing his accounts, and he lost his house. The bank foreclosed it, and his debt to the IRS is still open. We are not in the US, so he won't go to jail for this, however. But my $25K that he did not want to repay ended up costing him over $500,000. And since you cannot go bankrupt for a debt you owe to the government, I'm happy to tell you that at 40 years old, he had to move back in with his parents and ask for welfare, and will probably be paying this for the rest of his life. The story is not finished, however. I just learned that he now has a job as a concierge in the apartment building of his parents, so I'll be contacting the court to have the money he owes me taken directly from his pay. The thing is, he has no idea I'm the culprit of all his bad fortune, and he recently sent me a message telling me he misses me, that I was an angel for him, and that he regrets what he did. Well, not me, loser, not me. Bravo, lady, bravo. Phone scammers are bad, and phone scammers who take advantage of elderly people are the worst. Just a word of warning, the next one is a little bit graphic. No room for child killers in this cell block. This story was told to me by my friend's dad. He's a personal trainer, and was training this guy to the gym who just got out of prison a couple months prior, and told him this story. It spread through the prison like wildfire about this man who got what was coming to him. A man was convicted for raping and killing 2 girls, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. The man was only serving life, but he didn't get the death penalty. This angered the other prisoners, who decided to take revenge. The prisoners started taking broomsticks from the janitor closet, and after collecting a few, they went into a cell at night. No one knows how the doors opened, but it was said the prisoners had connections with the guards. When the doors opened, the prisoners went into the guy's room, gagged him, tied him up, and proceeded to shove 14 broomsticks in his violently and forcefully. The body was found in the morning, bound and gagged. It is said that he bled out over a period of hours. A gruesome, painful death for someone who deserved it. So, you like hurting others? Enjoy being jumped by a mob of kids in front of us. Your mother gets some karma too. This took place maybe 2 to 3 years ago. TLDR at the bottom. I was volunteering for a camp because I really needed to go out some more, and I thought, hey, a camp would be nice. Me, F1, and F2, F1 and F2 were actual members of the camp, were leaders for a group of 30 children. All of them were cool, always listening to us and following the rules. All except one, of course. This little LC in the story was a demon spawn. He bit, pulled hair, threw stuff, beat, choked, pushed other children. Once, he bit F2 hard, but we managed to get LC off him. The mother, CM, was a She always blamed the victims, threatened to sue us if LC was kicked out, and also encouraged LC's behavior. You couldn't talk sense into her. She always said that she had connections to police. She'll get anyone arrested, said some racial stuff to others, and kept saying, "He's just playing," whenever we told her about LC. This went on for about a week, until all the other children had enough. They decided to just jump him and make him endure several minutes of beating next time we went hiking. Only some girls and boys came to us and told us the plan, snitches, and left. Me, F1, F2 look at each other and decide to let them do it. We were sick of him. So, the next day, while we were hiking, LC began hitting another child. While me and F1 went ahead to scout the road, the other children jumped, and I mean jumped, LC. The cunt endured 10 minutes of hair pulling, kicks, punches, children biting him. When we got back, the mob stopped. LC looked at us like he had seen God, but I watched as all color drained from his face as me, F1, and F2 gave a wink and just sat by. Then, with smiles on their faces, the mob resumed its punishment. By the end of it, LC looked like a roadkill, but still alive. When we got back, CM screamed bloody murder when she saw LC. She started accusing us and the children of assault. When I got in her face and whispered, "They were just playing," she tried to hit me, but I dodged and slapped her to the ground. Thanks, Dad, for these reflexes, telling her that she and LC are banned from the camp. She left in a hurry, with a crying LC behind her. Some days later, a police car arrived due to a call about children abuse and assault. The policeman talked to the children, us, and the other parents, and left, as they saw the children happy and everything alright. She tried calling the police 4 more times before being arrested for false accusations. Karma. The parents didn't believe her when she said their children did this, as she'd lied before. We just told them he tripped and fell down a hill because he didn't follow the rules, and they effing bought it. The children who informed us of the plan kept quiet, happy with the results. In short, TLDR, kid is a beats children, children form a mob and jump him, we see it and let it happen. His mother calls police 5 times and is arrested. Other children's parents believe us when we say he fell down a hill. And that's it. The end. Notes: you can say that we should have stopped the mob, but we are sheet human beings and not morally superior. We wanted revenge as well. Well, what do you guys think? Should they have stopped the mob? Share what you think in the comments. Bully me for 4 years? Have fun being in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Well, hello there. This is a long one, so hold on to your butts and grab some refreshments. Before I begin with this story, I'll firstly apologize for the formatting, since I am on a mobile, and secondly, this is my first ever post, and I would love to hear feedback. Also, I'm writing this when I already had 2 all-nighters back to back, so my head, and thus my grammar, is not in the best state. Okay, so this story happened a good 9 to 10 years ago when I was about 11. I had this horrible bully that frequently made sure I would come home depressed or even crying. The bully was younger than me, but even worse was that he was way taller than me. He was like 170 while I was like 150. I was quite small for my age, due to my parents who were also quite short. He was tall because he had something that would make his bones grow faster. This will become very important later on in the story. The bully, who we'll call TF for tall had bullied me in a variety of ways. He would frequently say things about my height and call me a disabled idiot that didn't matter. He would also say very anti-Semitic things to me. I'm Jewish, to the point that he even threw a brick through one of my windows with a letter on it that said things like, "the Jews," and he drew a few swastikas on there for good measure, I guess. This bullying had continued throughout the rest of the 4 years I was in that school, which made me extremely depressed that at some points I had considered suicide. I was very dumb and I was very young. But one day, around the final week of school, he had done the worst thing ever to me. TF pushed me down a small flight of stairs. When I was at the bottom, he jumped on me. This hurt like hell, and I started crying. Then he took the opportunity to kick me while I was down. Luckily, one of my friends found me on the ground and brought me to a teacher. At the time, it was hard to breathe, so my friend picked me up. The teacher, who I'll call BT for the teacher, you'll see why later, was shocked and then told my friend to get another teacher, specifically the one who used to be a nurse. At the end of the day, I was fine, and I was told I had to stay after school in order to talk about what happened. I finished the rest of the day, and then it came back to BT. TF was also there. I thought I had finally had the chance to expose TF. When I sat down, I immediately started telling BT what this had done to me, but as soon as I told her, she called me the worst thing she could have at that point of time, a liar. This broke me, and I realized she wasn't there to help me at all, so I became silent. In the end, she told us we were both equally responsible for what happened, and that we both had to stay every day to clean up the school. This infuriated me. As soon as we walked out of that class, TF began making fun of me again, saying things like, "If you weren't so useless, this wouldn't have happened," and "Jews are cowards, so I know you would tell the teacher." This was the final straw. Luckily for me, we were on the second floor of the building, which had 2 entry points, one with a collection of small stairs and one with a long stairway. Luckily for me, he decided to go the long stairway. Revenge planned. When we eventually came to the stairway, I waited until he was already 2 steps down. This way, I could easily kick him in the back. I stood ready and decided that for this revenge, I had to Sparta kick him off those stairs. When I did, it felt incredible at first, but then I looked down all those stairs and I saw that TF looked like he was in extreme pain. I laughed and decided I'll exit from the other stairway, so I would look less suspicious. Luckily for me, I saw the janitor on my way out, who later told BT that I couldn't have kicked TF from the stairway because he saw me leave from the other stairway. Edit. A day after I heard that TF was injured, and I was questioned if I did it, but because the janitor was a witness, and they eventually thought I had nothing to do with it. Fast forward a few years, and I get to hear that TF is in therapy, and then he broke both his legs, and his nervous system in his legs are permanently damaged mysteriously one day while he was at school. Best part is because BT was with him last, she was held responsible and was fired and had her teaching license removed. Nowadays, TF is in a wheelchair and quit his school life. Apparently, he's still trying to recover by doing a lot of therapy, but I know his family well enough that they can't pay for that forever. I do not regret a single thing. If you want more where that came from, simply click on one of these boxes right here. And if you liked the video, I assume you did since you're still here, remember to let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't already, click my channel icon right here to subscribe and be one of the first viewers for every video I upload. I'll see you in the next episode of Reddit Chronicles.